What is your biggest complaint about the average or typical American lifestyle?
Overconsumption. We just want things. We want a lot of things. And look for happiness in things.
And I think the American dream idea,
That's a problem.
That's the problem. And the belief that everyone can succeed, so everyone's going to win that lottery, or everyone has a chance. And so many people believe, or politically support the idea of low taxes on the rich, because someday they might be rich, and that kind of thing. And so there's just some, and yet when you look at our country compared to other countries, we're less likely to have that experience of moving up the ladder than many other countries, and it's to our surprise,
Well, when you say the American dream, my dad came over as an immigrant, and he came for the American dream. It is a place where there's more opportunity, where you're not stuck necessarily, or at least you don't have to.
Well, we couldn't do what we're doing in Switzerland.
Yeah, they wouldn't let us they wouldn't let us homeschool our kids, and they wouldn't let us drive rusty cars, and so there's the economic dreamers, the ones who come as refugees or whatever, economic. There's also ones who come for freedom to express themselves in a way that other countries, even Western countries that theoretically are free but culturally are very restricted.
What are your thoughts about sustainability?
That was probably my initial driving thing. The reason why we name it Round River Farm is based on Aldo Leopold's essays on Round River, which is talking about the cycles of energy, of nutrients, of flow. And so naming it Round River Farm would help remind us every day, is this a linear, process that we've created, or is it a cyclical process? And so probably our most pure cyclical process is water. We pump the water up with wind, we use solar to push it, pressurize it. It gets filtered through the gardens or our wastewater treatment, which also goes to water plants, and then it goes back in the ground, back in, all without fossil fuels. So that's a very sustainable system. But overall,
I think there's two kinds of sustainability. There's the physical, what you're talking about, the resource sustainability, but then there's the emotional sustainability or financial sustainability, or I don't know what you'd call it.
Social
Those two different things. Social sustainability, where it's just where you can live that way and be happy or whatever, or physically. Is it sustainable for us to physically maintain this life, even if it is sustainable for the work, for the earth? And as we've gotten older, we've had to back off a little bit from our hardcore, no fossil fuels or whatever, absolutism with that. It was when our kids were away at school. So this is sort of sustainability in that we wanted them to want to come home. But they tended to come home on holidays, which like Christmas, Thanksgiving and Christmas, which are the darkest times of the year. And they tend to spend a lot of time on computers. And we would feel it when they would come, especially in November. And so the whole time they'd be home, we'd be harping on them, turn off your computer or whatever, because we were running out of electricity. And we decided that it wasn't
we better get a generator.
It wasn't worth it.
Stress relief.
It was actually...
Oh, we'll just run the generator.
Yeah, we'll just run the generator and be okay with it, because then our kids can be home and we aren't yelling at them the whole time, or nagging them the whole time. Just nagging, always nagging.
So that was a kind of social.
That was a
compromise that had physical realities to it.
Yeah. So I don't know if that answered your question.
The nuances of sustainability.
Yeah.
That's still a lot less than if you were hooked up to the grid.
Oh yeah.
Well, because human nature is that you use what you have available. It's good to have limits. I guess that goes back to my overconsumption thing. It's good to limit yourself. It's good that we have to walk that road in the wintertime.
Yeah.
It's good to have physical limitations, because as human nature is to be
comfortable
and a little lazy, or at least minimize your effort, and if all it means is flicking a switch, that's pretty little effort compared to some other things.
That's what I tell some people.
So you have to make your lifestyle requires those, or puts those
forced limits are very important. I say this isn't from strength that we live off the road. It's by living off the road, it forces us to walk for 6 months, to not drive, to not haul lots of stuff. To live off the grid forces us to reduce our consumption.
Right. And to sometimes say, we don't have.
And it's more recognition of our own weaknesses and designing around it, so we're forced into sustainability, and that.
But forced it not in a bad way.
Forced
to live the way we want to live.
Self-imposed.
That would be difficult to probably achieve if we didn't have some way to physically.
But the benefits of that imposition is, we don't use as much power. We play cards. We do other things that otherwise we might, and we tend to now lean towards. But to physically not have it is the best way to change it. That's what people say, well, how can I, do what you're doing in the city? Well, how can I do it? I say, that main switch, that breaker box, just turn off.
Live like that for a
and
while.
Live like that for weeks.
You will find out what you miss most.
What do you really need? Refrigeration, a few lights.
That will put things in priority.
Minimalism.
We'll put things in priority. Take it all away, and then it very quickly.
And that's what made it easier for us. People think we're doing amazing things, but we started with nothing. Then we had a light bulb. And then we had a washing machine. And then we had, So for us,
thing still feels like a treat. Hot water still is a treat.
And hot water is still a treat.
Being able to do laundry here is still a treat.
So it's much easier to go from nothing up than to go from a fully functional house down.
Right.
So for us, this is easy. For other people, going to where we are now would be just devastating.
They would feel deprived.
Right. Whereas we feel abundant and decadent.
It's just
a little guilty.
It does. Yeah, it actually does feel. We've backslid so far. Yeah, no, it's.
But a lot of
which direction you come in it.
The impulse of this whole process was, how do we live in a way that we can sustain ourselves and have a good life, so that everyone can live. Gandhi, tried to live at the least of these, so that there's enough materials, and that's why we wanted to share the place, because maybe we are using too many materials for one family.
What is the biggest challenge you've seen in farming?
Burnout.
Bodies.
Burnout.
We've
Physical and psychological burnout.
Psychological burnout too.
It's it can be a very stressful life, very risky. You put a lot of work and money into a place. The whims of nature.
And then it rains too much.
Or the market can, crush it. And physically, it's demanding work, and so it doesn't really.
And it's high capital.
It's very capital intensive. Land. Now the current issue we didn't experience because we just got in at a good time, but the cost of land. Anybody who wants to farm.
We could never start.
We could never start now. Land, especially in like Iowa, places where it's really farming country.
People will haggle over a bunch of carrots.
25
but
cents.
Then when we upped our wreath price, Christmas gift, $8. We got more orders the next year, and it wasn't questioned.
That was always so
because something
ironic.
you don't need.
At the time, we had a farm stand, and we really wanted to raise it like from $1.25 to $1.50 a head of lettuce.
Yeah.
And people were like, they want the best deal, and it was like very difficult. They were nitpicky
That's
about
too
it.
high. It's too high.
So people just have such a different mentality when it's not related to food.
Food or gas, people drive
you
to
always
the
said
cheapest gas station.
You either have to grow something to make a profit farming. You either have to grow something illegal
something
or
people don't
unnecessary,
or talk about it.
Or talk about it. That's right, because you can, as a
those are the ways
speech giver or an academic, you can make a lot talking about farming.
And
but actually doing it, you can't.
And
that's something weird about this.
We've made more money talking about farming than we've made farming ever.
Yeah.
How do you envision the future of our planet?
I think there'll be a regionalization of food, and so my challenge, my question is, how do we create it so that the people are in control of it,
Right.
so that the farmers get a share of that food dollar?
I would add a dimension to that vision is that people need to feel more connected to the land that sustains them, to the earth systems that sustain them, in an emotional and I would say spiritual way, although it can take many forms. Because we're a very material world right now, and I think that's where a lot of the problems are coming from, environmentally and socially probably too. We're into things. We're not connected to what it is that sustains us, either community-wise or earth-wise. And so I think that it doesn't bode well for the future if we don't start figuring out how to make that connection.
What are your thoughts on the 50-year plan?
I think it's great. For me, it was kind of fun to hear about this concept from a lot of what I felt similar roots to some similar passions or desires behind it. Yet it was the exact opposite path of settling in and figuring out how to become sustainable. And it's like a Dorothy Day approach, where we're out there, there's service and out in the world, moving from place to place. So I thought it was intriguing and wonderful. I think it's a great endeavor, and I don't know if you'll get there, but that's not the point. It's the process.
The process.
And maybe you'll stop here, but all that process and whoever was touched along the way, in whatever way and how it manifests out.